Year after year, many approach the NFL offseason with a collective feeling of confusion and, in some cases, frustration over the lack of qualified black head coaching candidates who've been snubbed from receiving deserved opportunities. The primary organization that demands answers and offers solutions to that issue is the Fritz Pollard Alliance, and its executive director is Rod Graves. Rod joins us now here on BNC. Rod, thanks so much for your time. I mentioned a moment ago the frustration that comes each and every year without fail. I don't know these guys, and I'm frustrated for them. As someone who witnesses this on a much closer level, what is the prevailing feeling when you see it occur over and over again?
Well, obviously there's frustration, and the NFL has been around for over 100 years. It's $1 billion business, and we just feel that in this day and age, we shouldn't have to address the type of issues with respect to the lack of diversity and leadership. And that's the objective and the mission that we have, is to keep a focus on this to improve hiring at all levels, particularly in leadership roles.
As you know, Eric Bieniemy has become the most recent glaring example of a coaching candidate who has the utmost qualities you'd expect franchises to value when it comes to tabbing someone to lead their teams. As the Kansas City offensive coordinator, he's developed Patrick Mahomes into the MVP at age 23, back-to-back Super Bowl appearances in the 2 years after that. And if you listen to Eric Bieniemy, how can you not be impressed? Rod, is there any good reason this man is not a head coach?
No, there's not a good reason. And Eric is, quite frankly, excuse my language, but he's a damn good football coach. He's shown leadership over and over again. He's very effective as a coach, as a teacher, as an administrator with his team. There's no reason why Eric shouldn't be on the sideline next year as a head coach, but he is the more obvious person that we're focused on. There are many others who are well qualified, and the pipeline is full and thick of guys who deserve an opportunity. Obviously, he is one who's been illuminated by the press, but there are many others who represented their teams well throughout the playoffs. Todd Bowles, Keith Armstrong, Byron Leftwich, I could go down the line, but there are quite a few guys that have not received the attention and given the opportunity that they richly deserve.
Well, 25 years ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hired Tony Dungy after he'd been overlooked for many years. All he did was turn a miserable Tampa Bay franchise into a contender on his way to the Hall of Fame. Speaking of the Bucs, you mentioned them. They become the first team ever to score 30-plus points 4 times in a single postseason. Yet their offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, did not get a single interview for one of the 7 head coaching vacancies this offseason. Rod, I'll get your perspective in a moment, but first, listen to what Tampa head coach Bruce Arians had to say about that.
I was very, very pissed that Byron didn't at least get an interview this year for the job that he's done. I think I get way too much credit, and so does Tom Brady, for the job that Byron has done.
All right, so the coach who has formed the most diverse staff in NFL history, very firm and direct. What are your thoughts on that, Rod, especially in a league that always seems to obsess over offensive play callers?
Well, we know that the current hiring system is flawed. It's the most imperfect hiring system that I'm aware of, and the league can certainly do better. But when you have outstanding coaches like Eric, like Byron, like Todd Bowles, and many others, I could go down the list, Leslie Frazier and so forth. To me, it's a travesty that these young men aren't leading teams in the way that they're capable of doing. And so the system has to change. We have to create a system where we are able to benefit from meritocracy as opposed to being hired on friendships and lack of skill and that sort of thing. We just challenge the league to be as good as it can be, and you can't do that if you're not giving all of the candidates full consideration.
Just so our viewers understand, Rod Graves spent time in the front offices of the Bears, Cardinals, and Jets, part of that a 10-year stint as the GM in Arizona. That includes the Cardinals Super Bowl 43 berth. So, Rod, of course, you know what it's like to sit in that chair, conduct those interviews. What exactly are owners looking for, and why is there such a disparity? For instance, this offseason alone, we've seen guys with very little NFL experience, such as Brandon Staley land the Chargers job. Dan Campbell did not call plays. He gets the gig in Detroit. The Lions actually canceled an interview with Todd Bowles. You go back 2 years, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, the quarterback's coach, he didn't call plays. So what exactly are these owners looking for?
Well, I think if you ask 32 different owners, you'll get 32 different answers. And that's part of the issue. I think that the standards are different, and particularly they've been demonstrated to be different for Black coaches. That's the issue. Wherever we try to line up and apply with credentials and standards that they set forth, we find out that the goalposts are moved whenever we're in position to be considered. So that in itself is an issue, Anthony. And I just hope that, again, we can bring attention to these matters and keep the focus on there to improve hiring opportunities, not just on the field, but also on the business side of football. If you look at the corporate portrait of many teams, and even in the subsidiaries that the NFL owns, you won't find much of a different story. So this is a systemic problem that needs to be addressed at the highest level, and we're certainly working with the league to try to do that.
The Rooney Rule established and adopted by the league in 2003, 3 Black head coaches then. Here we are 18 years later, 3 Black head coaches in the NFL. We could go on for much longer as far as this is concerned, but we appreciate your time. Rod Graves, Executive Director of the Fritz Pollard Alliance. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks so much for joining us here on BNC.
Thank you for having me.
All right, some